All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of V Electronics, and in this video, we'll be talking about opportunity cost. Okay, in the last video, we talked about production possibilities frontier, and we talked about division or allocation of resources. Okay, in this case, in this video, we'll talk about opportunity cost of producing one product over the other. Okay, and how it impacts the world in general, how it impacts the global economy. All right, so we know that if you have 1,000 workers to produce oil, country A will be able to produce 200 barrels of oil and 50 bushels of corn if it assigns 1,000 workers to produce corn. We also know that country B will be able to produce 50 barrels of oil if it assigns 1,000 workers to do the job and 200 bushels of corn. So country B has an absolute advantage when it comes to production of corn. And country A has an absolute advantage when it comes to production of oil. Okay. However, when it comes to opportunity cost, the opportunity cost has to do with the cost of production. Okay. When it comes to giving up, okay, producing another product. Okay. So if you're producing corn, okay, what is the opportunity cost of producing corn? What are you giving up? Okay. What is let's just say, what is the trade-off in this equation? Okay, the trade-off would be oil, because if you produce 50 bushels of corn, you can no longer produce 200 barrels of oil because this is a limited resource. The total amount of workers that you may have or can hire is a limited resource. Okay, say for example, in theory, right? And because this is a limited resource, and this could be anything, this could be raw materials, it could be natural resources, it could be precious metals. Okay, your limited resources, non-renewable resources, or renewable resources, whatever you have in a certain quantity. Okay, nothing is indefinite when it comes to economics, right? Unless we're talking about free commodities, okay, such as air. All right. So we have limited resource over here, and this limited resource has to do with workers. And because we have limited resource, we can either assign these workers to produce corn or oil, or we can assign these workers to produce both. Let's say at this point over here. But either ways, you will have an opportunity cost. If you produce 50 bushels of corn, you won't be able to produce 200 barrels of oil. If you produce 200 barrels of oil, you won't be able to produce 50 bushels of corn. If you produce both, let's say you produce at this point, point C, you produce, let's say 20 bushels of corn. And let's say you produce 100 barrels of oil at this point, halfway through. All right. Either ways, okay, your production has been reduced when it comes to oil. It went down from 200 to 100. And when it comes to corn, the production has been reduced from 50 to 20 because you decided to produce both. All right. And the same goes for this country. When they decide to produce both goods or both commodities, okay, they will produce, let's say, 100 bushels of corn and 20 barrels of oil at this point, point C prime or C derivative or C1. Okay. So at C1, okay, the production has been reduced when it comes to corn. All right. Went down from 200 to 100. And oil production has been reduced because you divided, okay, you decided to divide your labor to produce both products. All right. So again, we're talking about opportunity cost. Okay, the opportunity cost of either producing both the products or the opportunity cost of producing one or the other. Okay, if you have an absolute advantage when it comes to production of corn, it's not that much of a big deal because the global economy, the global market economy relies on your corn production. right? So if you need to supply 200 bushels of corn, the global economy relies on this production, okay, for them to thrive and survive. Okay, so here, say for example, you decide to produce both. So let's say 20 barrels of oil and 100, okay, bushels of corn. So let's say the total production is 120. We're not going to put any values over here, unit values, just say units. So 120 units. And over here, okay, your production is 120 also, if you decide to produce both. Okay, now you look at 120 and you say, hey, listen, so what's the big deal? So the big deal is, let's say if another country C, relies on your corn production or oil production, and they need, okay, 100 barrels of oil from you. Okay, you don't have that 100 barrels of oil to supply because you didn't take advantage of your absolute advantage, as a result of which you ended up producing less when it came to oil, or you ended up producing less when it came to corn. So now all of a sudden you can't supply to another country because you're producing way less based on productivity, based on efficiency, based on absolute advantage, because you decided to divide your labor to produce both products. And that's a reason why absolute advantage is very important. So that way you can supply the entire world. All right, so that will be it for this video. On behalf of V Electronics, this is Obey. Have yourself a great day.